Hi everyone. Today we did get a massive up move in the after hours yesterday, and then pre-market went a little bit higher to that next level, 597.63. We said that was the resistance yesterday. Touched that level and then sold off straight down to the 200, consolidated in the same trading range that we were in yesterday. Still looks a little bit bearish from here. Still cannot get above that 591.09 level on a closing basis from this last consolidation here. So let's take a look at all of the charts and see if we can find anything different. Do me a quick favor and like and subscribe and watch the video till the end to help out the channel, and let's get started. So in news today, we got the Trump tariffs reinstated by the appeals court. Yesterday, they were removed due to the use of emergency powers, and then here today, they're right back on. So everything looks crazy in markets, can't seem to make a decision, and this is another flip-flop here. So they came out criticizing the ruling, as you would expect, immediately going to the appeals court, and then now we are back on, which has temporarily stayed this until further notice. Realistically, if they want these things to go, they need to do it through Congress. Congress really holds the keys to taxation, so the chances of that happening are not very high, but they say if they lose, they'll do it another way. But for now, it's back on, and markets didn't really seem to care, surprisingly. Moving over to fear and greed, we finished at a 64 from a 64, sideways choppy action, even with the spike up and the spike down. So absolutely nothing on this indicator. Breadth continues to go lower, as we've been talking about. Put call ratio going lower. Volatility still interesting here, hovering slightly higher than that previous low, and then bonds did not move at all. So still mixed on this indicator, still looking like a slight movement back towards neutral makes the most sense. Moving over to GDP numbers and the economic calendar here, GDP numbers were a little better than expectations, but still negative here for Q1. So continuing to be quite bad. And then looking at Fed balance sheet, continuing to sell off. 7-year note auction pretty much in line, so that seems to have stabilized a little bit. Tomorrow we get PCE data, which is definitely going to be very interesting. And then inflation data, really high expectations for the 1-year numbers. I don't expect it to be anywhere near that, but these have ticked up a lot here recently. So moving over to the charts here, starting off with the S&Ps, you can see we touched that level once again like we talked about. Momentum still bearish, RSI still bearish, still showing a topping pattern at this level. Absolutely not what you would want to see, even with the good news with NVDA and the good news around tariffs, even though that got canceled at the end of the session. You can see big wicks to that next level, took out those highs, big sells across the board. Everything you would not want to see for sure. Right now we're in this consolidation. If we get below these EMAs and SMAs here tomorrow, that is what I am very concerned about. And then if we close below 585, I think that's going to be a bigger move down from there. And then looking back in terms of levels, 578.87 is that next level to the downside after 585 here, and then the next level 569.90. This kind of consolidation of trend lines in here could be interesting. Not really expecting a whole lot out of it immediately, but watching these levels closely here tomorrow. Moving over to the Tasty charts here on the hourly, you can see that big push up, hit the upper ATR band, could not hold any of those gains, pulled back to the 144 on the hourly, back to the downside, and then we did flip back into bearish conditions here. You can see that trailing stop up at 494.64 again in that same region. Could not get above these highs here. You can see them. Previous highs, touch those highs. That is now your trailing stop. So technically bearish conditions here on the hourly chart. But looking at the daily, we're still in bullish conditions here, 570.35, and then we are still above that 8 EMA, even with the fading momentum there. So still holding up, still mixed conditions, but still looks like a topping pattern. Moving over to the NASDAQ, same thesis here. Big wick higher, big touch of that level, 523.24. Can't seem to get above that level. Huge wick here. You can see it on the hourly. Pulled back middle of the range after hours, drifting a little bit lower. So everything you would not want to see. Momentum still bearish, RSI still bearish. And again, this big wick rejection tells me that markets just can't seem to go higher. I don't think people want to pay any more than this. That is your all-time high. We were very close to it. We've retraced almost all of this move. And there's just not enough catalyst in the world to make this go higher, in my opinion. NVIDIA couldn't do it. Tariffs coming off temporarily couldn't do it. And that is very bearish for me. Moving over to the Tasty chart, same thesis here on the daily chart versus the SPY. We're right at that 8 EMA, did not close below it. So you're still hanging in there, bullish conditions on the daily chart. 4-hour chart also getting a push into bullish conditions, closing above that level on that first candle there. Nice push through, and then we pulled back right to that trading range. So bullish conditions, 510.57 is the hourly bullish trailing stop. But of course, if we go down to that hourly chart here, bearish conditions, just like we saw on the SPY charts. Didn't pull back all the way to the 144, so you're hanging in there a little bit better, but this continues to drift lower, and I don't love it. So we're going to watch this closely here tomorrow. My guess is that this is probably going to go through, but we'll see. Right now, doesn't look great. And then your trailing stop there, 526.26. Moving over to the Russell and the Dow, both of these staying positive on the day, just barely throwing wicks in both directions. Tried to go higher. Russell didn't look as good, still didn't get above that 208 level. Momentum bearish. RSI still bearish. Tested the level 205, held above it, falling after hours. Same here on the Dow, got very close to 418, ended up not quite touching it here. Momentum bearish, RSI bearish, still in the trading range, still right below that trend line as well, but still holding above the 200. Still looks like a topping pattern. Pretty much nothing has changed here today. Moving over to the Mag 7. Mag 7 officially got a touch of that level, the 315.04 level. Momentum bearish, RSI right at the SMA, no clear direction. I would say this is a top here. Again, touched that level, pulled back into the middle of the range, falling after hours. Everything says we just can't seem to go any higher despite all of the good news. Moving over to Apple and Microsoft. This looks terrible as you would expect. Apple was down about a quarter, got to that trend line area, rejected from there. Apple just not doing well. This has been a consolidation. We said double top in here. Can't seem to get below 196 either. Maybe their stock buyback price is in that range, but either way, stuck in this trading range, can't seem to get any higher. We also have these downtrending EMAs as resistance in here around that 204 area. And then you got Microsoft again. Momentum clearly slowing, still very much bullish. I wouldn't expect this to crater at all. But in terms of continuing to go higher, that doesn't seem to be happening either. So probably more neutral on Microsoft. Maybe we get a slight pullback as markets start to pull back more aggressively. Moving over to Tesla and NVIDIA. Tesla did stay positive just barely, but after hours we're giving all of that back. We're right to the level 355. If that goes, 336 is your next support. Momentum fading, RSI fading. This looks like a rising wedge now, which definitely does not look super great. And then looking at NVIDIA, this was supposed to save markets here yesterday, and it did go a lot higher. The high of day was 143.49, almost 144. Touched that level 140.76, but we closed below it and we're fading in the after hours. I expected the earnings to be less exciting, and it seems like we're getting that less excitement a little bit later here. Momentum is still bullish, RSI overbought, but it doesn't seem like we're going to be able to stay above that 140 level, and certainly not touch the all-time high back here around the 150 to as high as the 152 area. Moving over to staples and discretionaries. Staples did go a little bit higher, 0.4%. Again, another good place to be. Not going any lower, not going any higher. Really not a good vehicle for covered calls either. So a little bit of dead money. I would say maybe you want to be somewhere with a better yield is probably a better move. I've been buying bonds here. I've been talking about it forever. And then discretionary is double top, pulled back to the level 215. On a closing basis, we were below it. After hours, we are still slightly below it. Doesn't look great, just like everything else. Moving over to breadth here. Surprisingly on breadth, we actually did get a nice little bounce here. Even with markets not really holding the gains, breadth did bounce slightly. So that's a little bit reassuring. We haven't seen this start to roll over too aggressively yet. Momentum bearish, RSI still bearish on everything. But in terms of price action, we're still in the same range we've been in over the last 4 to 5 days. Moving over to the dollar. What a day on the dollar. Huge move down after a big gap higher. So big gap up to that 105, 100.5, and then ended up down at 99.2. So wide ranging day here. From top to bottom, that was about 1.25%, maybe a little bit more. Ended up down, gap down for the open, continues to sell here. So the dollar continues to look bearish. This looks like a breakdown, almost retest breakdown. Momentum bearish, RSI bearish. Moving over to bonds. I bought a nice chunk of bonds here today, and TLT had a great day, up almost 1%, back above that 85.90 level. Continues to go higher here. Might buy some more in here for the push up to 89. Still like bonds, momentum bullish, RSI bullish across the board on both of these. Moving over to my accounts, I continue to sit on these really deep in the money covered calls. I almost rolled them down and in, and I hesitated on that. Clearly I should have done it. As we continue to sell here after hours, still have lots of protection. If we start to dip below some of those levels, I'll take these shares off and hold the calls and let them continue to profit. Lots of protection. 2 of these on for about $4,300 on that protection. So we'll see right now, very small loss on the shares, plenty of protection. But like I said, if this starts to accelerate to the downside, I want to sit on the calls and take the shares off. That's the adjustment I'm looking for tomorrow if we do start to see an acceleration. Let me know down in the comment section what you thought of the charts today. What did you think of the back and forth on tariffs? And do you care that we could not go higher and hold? Or is this just another stall before we get a continuation higher? Let me know. Otherwise, like and subscribe if you got any value out of this video. Make sure you hit the bell so you don't miss out on any future episodes. Of course, none of this is financial advice. This is all for entertainment purposes. Good luck in your trading and have a great day.